Lately, we've been hit with a massive wave of powerful model releases, record after record in the leaderboard almost weekly. Google finally crashed the benchmark with Gemini 3 Pro and the newest Flash. The new Opus has put Anthropic back on top for coding, while OpenAI has been steadily scaling up with GPT-5.1 and 5.2 releases. In this video, I'm gonna compare the top models from the leaderboards in vibe coding tests. I'll make them build complex projects with just one prompt. I wanna find out who actually is the king of programming right now. Hi, I'm Oleg. In my day job I'm a software engineer, but on this channel I'm a vibe coder. Here I test AI models and tools, build micro projects and create automations. I check what actually works and what only hypes. Which models are we putting into the test today? From Anthropic, I'm taking the duo of Sonnet and Opus 4.5. The equivalent pair from Google are Gemini 3 Pro and Flash, plus OpenAI's flagship GPT-5.2 with the thinking mode maxed out to extra high. For some variety, I made in the high-speed Composer 1 from Parser. Two powerful open-source models, Kimi-K2 and GLM 4.7, and the Chinese Titan Qwen 3 Max. I won't be testing the beefed-up GPT Pro from OpenAI because it's not included in any coding tool subscription, even the $200 ones. That means you can only use it via API key, and this model eats up dozens or even hundreds of dollars in minutes. I tried testing it, but haven't spent about $15 with almost zero progress on the task. I decided to skip the model. My budget just can't handle vibe coding on that model yet. And honestly, it's way too slow for a coding workflow. For the IDE, I'll be using Cursor, as 6 out of the 9 models are available there out of the box, ensuring a level playing field. For the rest, I'll be using client with API integration since they are not supported in Cursor. Let's do something simple as a warm-up. Lately, I've been feeling like life has become too complicated. There are so many things to do, timings to follow, documents to collect. It's a lot to keep track of. On the other hand, if you imagine you aren't just filing for a visa, but completing a side quest in a fantasy RPG, the anxiety goes away. You are just a player finishing tasks. So I had an idea to build a basic to-do list, but in a fantasy style. It needs achievements for completed tasks, items and a Middle-earth vibe. I think this is the perfect project for our first warm-up test. For the visual reference, I picked out these images from Pinterest. And to make sure the models understand the plot, colors and style, I asked GPT to describe each image thoroughly. This returned me a prompt. I added my functional requirements and a threatening text at the end with today's testing conditions. Here are the rules. For each task, I give one initial prompt describing the entire project, then I check the result. If something is wrong, I allow up to 5 additional prompts to fix the bugs. After 5 fixes, the result is considered final. Including these rules in the prompt forces the models to self-test and only stop when they are genuinely confident that code works. This is a great trick to save time on manual tweaking when there is a huge potential for mistakes. Here is the final prompt for the fantasy to-do list. One important detail: quest icons will be emojis selected by LLM based on task text. Also, achievements must be custom AI written text. And for the client models, I added a note on where to find the rules that Cursor handles by default, specifically regarding MCP context 7 usage and how to manage Python code if needed. The full text of prompts, rules and projects will be in the video description. After running the prompt through each model, the results were interesting. Let's look at them, starting from the cheapest models to the most expensive. Composer created somewhat awful design. No achievements or items were included. GLM 4.7 built a working product, quests are created but they can't be marked as completed, and no achievements. Kimi-K2, tasks can be created but not completed. Also, Kimi kept freezing after every single action, which was incredibly annoying. Gemini Flash more or less works, though it missed the items feature. Qwen 3 Max couldn't finish the code and got stuck halfway through. GPT, everything works, the design is solid and the mechanics are all there. Gemini Pro. Surprisingly, quest creation never started to work even after all the fixes. Sonnet fully operational, rather questionable design. Opus did everything perfectly, achievements, items, icons, great design and beautiful fonts. Here are the scores for the stage. For the second task, I wanted to build a system that gathers information from Reddit. Reddit is a gold mine for startup ideas. I decided to build a system that scrapes post and comments text, runs them through an LLM to identify the author's specific problems, and then generates embeddings to create a semantic vector map. This map should visually show clusters of similar pains. I chose to use Playwright for browser emulation and proxies to avoid being banned. Without a proxy, these scrapers hit a wall very quickly once their IP is flagged. Proxies let us rotate IPs in the right location. Here is the prompt. Let's see the results. Composer failed. It doesn't work even after 5 fixes. GLM 4.7, it runs and tries to mine data, but ultimately returns nothing. Qwen 2, the front end opens, but the start button does nothing. Gemini Flash fixed everything in just 2 prompts. The map is a bit clunky, but it works, including both post and comments. Qwen 3 Max, dead on arrival. Even after fixes, the system can't find any info. GPT worked immediately, used 2 prompts to polish small details like zoom and point size. Gemini Pro, it launched but found 0 data. Sonnet, functional but failed to load comments into the system. Opus got it done in 3 extra prompts. Here are the scores for this round. Recently, I've been using Dogploy to manage projects on my servers. It's great for spinning up Docker images via GitHub in a few clicks. However, I noticed it lacks the ability to deploy public GitHub projects without logging into an account, which I need when setting up someone else's server where I don't want to leave my credentials. It also lacks alerts for failures and the built-in code editor for quick custom images. Sure, I could switch to Qualify, but let's build our own custom admin dashboard for my specific needs. Here's the prompt. I want Telegram alerts for downtimes to react on them quickly, GitHub integration, an editor, and domain HTTPS configuration. I won't test the actual domain routing today, since doing that on a local machine is a headache. You really need a server for that. Running the agents now. Composer built a project where basically nothing works and nothing deploys. GLM 4.7. Something launches, but the browser shows a blank page. Qwen 2 couldn't get it running even after fixes. Gemini Flash. GitHub connection seems to work, but private repos clone as empty folders and build logs are missing. Public projects work if the name is unique and the design is very default. Qwen 3 Max. Terrible design. The project creation form is super basic and crashes immediately. I spent an hour and $10 trying to fix it with no luck. GPT. Almost everything worked out of the box. After 2 prompts, it was perfect, it was the fastest, had a pleasant design and a clear UI. Gemini 3 Pro got it mostly working after fixes. However, if Docker fails to build, you see nothing in the logs or the UI. Honestly, the design is ugly and off-putting. Sonnet, fully functional after 5 fixes. GitHub integration, file editor, start and stop, it's all there. Only the alerts didn't make the cut. Opus works perfectly after 5 fixes. Every deployment type functions, public, private, the editor, and even log searching with and, or, and brackets logic. Telegram alerts work as well. Scores for this stage, let's keep on going. Now for a genuinely useful test. I often think about translating my videos into other languages, like English. Originally they are in Russian. With modern tech, this should be automatable. But most of the available solutions just aren't good enough. HeyGen has auto-dubbing but very little customization. Other services are even worse. The most interesting one I found was Doubly. They charge €100 for a 30-minute video, but then ask another 100 for lip sync. That's a bit steep for me. Since I've been studying these models and building pipelines recently, I think I can try to build my own dubbing system. The system will work like this. Extract audio from the source video, transcribe it via 11 labs, translate it with an LLM, generate speech in Minimax cloning the original voice, and finally do the lip sync in Pixverse. I'm including some code snippets from my previous project of shorts generator for Minimax and Pixverse integrations to the project folder. Now the models understand how to work with the APIs. I'm asking for an editor with step-by-step generation where I can edit the original text, the translation, and regenerate the voice. Let's run it. Composer gave me what looked like a working project, but transcription returns 0 words, making the whole thing useless. GLM 4.7 works, but the previews for each stage don't display in the UI.
Vibe coding is a new way of creating programs where you forget that code even exists. You just describe what you want in plain language, and the neural network writes all the code for you. Today, I am implementing a project for automatic video cutting based on a script, and I will do it with an absolute vibe coding approach without looking at the program files at all.
Gemini-2 couldn't even get the transcription to start. Gemini Flash works after 5 fixes. Transcription and translation work, but it crashes during voice generation. Qwen 3 Max failed at the transcription stage. GPT, excellent results after 2 fixes. Everything is predictable with progress bars in percents for each task. The voice sounds a bit off, but that's likely a Minimax model setting I can tweak later.
Vibe coding is a new way of creating programs where you forget that code even exists. You describe what you want in plain language, and the AI writes all the code for you. Today, I'm implementing a project for automatic video cutting based on a script.
Gemini 3 Pro, the system works after fixes, but lacks a voice ID selector and a proper final preview in the browser. It works once downloaded though.
Vibe coding is a new way of creating programs where you forget that code even exists. You simply describe what you want in plain language, and the neural network writes all the code for you. Today, I will implement a project for automatic video cutting based on a script text.
Sonnet failed to get past the transcription failed error even after 5 fixes. Opus worked immediately without any fixes. Had a couple of tiny issues, but after 2 prompts, it's amazing.
Vibe coding is a new way to build software where you forget that code even exists. You just describe what you want in plain English, and the AI writes all the code for you. Today, I'm building a project that auto-cuts video to match a script.
Let's look at the score. Time for my traditional final test, spatial reasoning. We are going to force these text models to create a 3D model in Blender using MCP. Usually I ask for a Soviet apartment block, but since these models are getting smarter, I want to try something harder. Today we are building a 3D model of Matsumoto Castle in Japan. It's beautiful, complex, but not impossible and not so squarish. Let's try to do it. This is the prompt, let's run it. See for yourself, but I think GPT and Opus absolutely nailed it. Here are the final standings. GPT absolutely dominated every test. I think it comes down to that extra high thinking mode. It took a long time to think, and lately it has become obvious that there is direct correlation between thinking time and the quality of the output. Opus doesn't seem to try as hard in this regard, though it still gives excellent results. The gap between them was tiny, mostly just micro details. Composer was definitely the fastest, but the results were not so great. I think it's best for small specific tasks rather than building entire systems from scratch. Gemini 3 Flash was the biggest surprise. The price-to-performance ratio is incredible. This is easily the best option for AI coding on a budget. The combination of the model and the tool matters immensely. Gemini-2, Qwen, and GLM could connect to Cursor, react to prompts, but they couldn't handle the actual workload until I moved them to Qwen. It's also possible the Anthropic models work better in Claude Code and Qwen in something like Qwen Code, but that's a topic for another video. What I realized today is that building micro MVPs in a single prompt is officially a reality, as long as you have a well-described logic and API examples. The bottleneck in development is no longer the code or the prompts, it's testing, documentation, and architecting the system. Those stages now take up the most time. Next, I'm excited to try building real production-ready monetized products in a single prompt. It feels like we are finally there. So, those are the results. That's how we're kicking off 2026. I'm curious to see what else this year will bring. Will we see any radically new models? Maybe new architectures or approaches? We'll see. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel. I'll keep testing tools, comparing models, and sharing my projects. That will do for now. I'll see you around.